All right, so once again, good evening, everyone. So today we'll be continuing from where we stopped in our last class, or rather, we'll be having a little bit of an overview or just a slight revision of what we've done so far so that we can keep this knowledge and put it into what we have for today. So we've looked a little bit about what we did in our previous class, and today we want to just continue with that. So when we looked at MongoDB, we said it's a document-oriented NoSQL database, and one of the things we said is it's used for high volume data storage. So it can store a high volume of data. So that's great. And also, since you have horizontal scalability, you can actually increase it in so many ways because there's a whole lot of new opportunities with horizontal scalability in that kind of a package and load balancing. So yes, it's great for that. Now, so instead of using conventional rows and tables or tables and rows, we then have what we call documents and collections. So this takes the place of that. And documents is basically just a key value pair. Collection is just a set of documents and the functions which is relevant to, the same, they do basically the same functions. You have your collection that's taking the place of what you would have called your tables, and you have your rows being represented here as documents. So it's basically just the same opportunities or things that you can do. So going forward, we talked about horizontal scalability. I wouldn't want to explain it. You can go over the previous video to find, like the meaning. Okay, in case you haven't gotten that, you can just go over the previous video on YouTube. That should be for our class 7 on the intermediate NodeJS class. You can go over that and you see thorough explanation of sharding and horizontal scalability. Now, talking about MongoDB, we try to describe some of the key things. And we said this, for example, is a document. We have a key and value pair. So this is the key, this is the value. And then we have here some key things that are here, like the object ID. So here, each document has like an ID, and which is like, you can consider it as the URL of where this whole information is stored. So this is the key indicator of it. This is the primary key. If you are familiar with SQL terms, this will be the primary key. And then here will be other information here. So as here we see, we have each one of them has its own unique 24 character strings, and this makes it that each one of them, instead of you using things like 1, 2, 3, 4 as indicators, this one is unique across. And as a matter of fact, they try to make this string unique worldwide. So the chances that you can get this information without getting a duplicate of it is very great. Okay, the chances that you can is very great. Now let's look at some of the key features as we will see today. We saw the ID, we saw the collection, and just to familiarize ourselves with these terms, we'll see it in practical today, the ID, the collection, and we also discussed things like Json, what it is, and also we looked at data modeling, and from there, yes, so that was much of what we did in our last class. So today we'll be continuing from there. We'll continue from there today, and today should be more of a practical class. So by way of introduction, I would just like to introduce myself, and I'll say I am Benjamin Ifinudu, and while my screen is coming up, I am a software developer, experienced with the main and the .NET full stack. You can reach me at any time on the KodeCamp Slack workspace at Aerosoft. I'm not alone here. Okay, I have here with us KodeCamp mentor, and his name is Prosper, and he is a backend developer experienced with Node.js, MongoDB, Express.js, and TypeScript. So if you have any issues, you can reach to either one of us, and we'll be available to put you through. Now, today, what we're going to look at as our key activities or key concepts for today. So we're going to be looking at installing MongoDB locally. I might not walk you through the whole process, but I'll show you how to start it up. And one of the key things that you may likely face while trying to install MongoDB locally. So for those who have not installed MongoDB locally, I'll show you some of the, or one of the challenges you will likely face in the process. And yeah, so next we have is setting up MongoDB Atlas. In our last class, we tried to set it up and see how it goes. And today we'll just start our process afresh. And then from here, we'll have setting up Compass. Now, for you to work with Compass or set Compass up, ideally, once you download MongoDB locally, the local version, it automatically downloads Compass. And once it's done installing the MongoDB, it installs Compass. So if you've done installing MongoDB locally, you probably should have Compass set up on your system already. So after we've done these three processes, we'll look at how to connect to the application. Then we'll look at CRUD operations. Okay, we'll look at CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete, and we'll look at Mongoose as a package, and then we'll try to get our hands busy on, with some code today. So that's what we have for today. So I think at this junction, I can put this down and let's go straight to business. All right, so when you go to mongodb.com, going to mongodb.com, it brings you up to this page, and from mongodb.com, you should be able to access products and services. So here we have the community server edition. Okay, so if you click on the community server edition, this is for databases now. It takes you to choose which type of deployment is best for you. Now, if you want to work with Atlas, which is the software, okay, someone is writing on the screen. Now, if you want to work with the software, the online version, the cloud version, if you want to work with that, then you use this. And if you want it locally on your system, then you use this. Okay, so for now, and it brings up the download. It takes like some real serious times. Let me just cancel this download. I already have like a version. I already have like a downloaded version here. So I'll just is like when you pop it up. So when you go to the prompts, to install MongoDB locally, up, and here you click on the next, and here you see install. Okay, you see install if you are installing for the first time. But here, let me just click change. So just click change as well. So this here is what you see if you were to install this. So at this point, you see a check bar. You see a checkbox to choose if you want to install MongoDB Compass alongside. So if you click yes and you click next, here you can click change if you want, and then it brings that up. Okay, so it brings that up, and then okay, so it starts the process. Okay, so it starts the process, and along the line, you are oftentimes given. Since I already have it installed in my system, it's not trying to install it again. So you show your path to fill, and one of the paths to fill, you would see where you are to choose between network type. Okay, you see where you have to choose between network type, whether you want it to be a network-based type or you want it to be local. Okay, so domain or local. So when you click on domain or local, that you want it to work locally in your system, not as a network service. When you click domain or local, then it shows you, or it asks you for the domain name. Okay, so the domain name, just leave it at full stop. Then next it will show you, or from there it will also ask you for the username and password. Now the username it is asking for there is oftentimes the username of your current Windows user, if you're using a Windows, or if you're using a Mac, the current user of your system, okay, the current user of the system. So like if you're using a HP and your system is named HP, or the user is named HP rather, You just type HP and then the password. If you don't have a password, you leave it blank. If you have a password, you type that in, and that goes. So with that, the process continues until it's fully installed, and afterwards, Compass will come up. So that is the basic walkthrough for setting up MongoDB locally. Okay, so that's the basic walkthrough for setting up MongoDB locally. Then going over to the cloud version. So going over to the cloud version, let me just go over to Atlas. So here now, at Atlas, you can try for free. Okay, so if you click try for free, it's going to take you to cloud.mongo. Okay, so I don't like it. I don't like this one. Let me just go to the cloud.mongo. The user interface is different. So let me just use cloud.mongodb.com. I tried using this, and okay, am I signed in? Who am I signed in as? Okay, not this user. So let me log out and sign in as another user who doesn't yet have a cluster. Okay, so I'm signed in as this user who doesn't yet have a cluster. And all right. Okay, so apologies for the last class. I was too much of a rush to meet up the time that I didn't take note of the password I put in. So I had to just recover the password today. And so let's go over this. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. Okay, so right now, we don't have anything here. We don't have a database whatsoever. We don't have a database, we don't have a cluster or anything, okay? So here, you can see, this is what I wanted you to see in our last class, but you can see here. So here we have 3 types here, okay? I like this UI. This UI is really nice. Makes me feel like going to do some UI work. So this here you have the serverless, and this one it gives you specifications. Okay, so this serverless. Then here you have dedicated. So dedicated is for production applications with sophisticated workload. So when you are done, for example, setting up your backend service, and then you want to have a dedicated database, okay, so you can do this, and you have a dedicated database, and here you have a price tag added to it. Okay, so then here is the free version, and this is for learning purposes. So this one here is for sophisticated workload requirements, and you might need this if you have a work in production, because this will involve you, like when you're trying to query a database, sometimes you can have very slow queries if you're using free version, and some other perks that will be added to working with any of these 2 paid versions. All right, so let's go on with the shared version. So it's free, no credit card, no up payment, and this is great. So yeah, they're creating a cluster for us, and so what I was saying is you have AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure, and these are basically cloud providers. Okay, these are basically cloud providers, and anyone you choose is okay. So I usually just leave that default. So I have AWS, I have Parry, and here you could also always leave it at default, but you might want to choose like a cloud provider that is closer to you in terms of region. So if you are hosting your app in Nigeria or someplace, maybe in US, you want it in the US. If you're hosting it somewhere close, you want it there. So let's just put it in North America. It doesn't make much of a difference for now in terms of that until you have like a whole lot of things to put into consideration. So like I was saying here, I said here that one is free forever. Okay, it's free forever. If you are creating a cluster, your first cluster is free forever. You can do all your practice. And here you have some things here like mass connection, low network performance, 1,000 max databases, 100 max, and then 500 max collections. So these are things that you need to be aware of. Then here, it shows you low network performance. Here also, it's also showing you things that you should put into consideration. So here we're going with free forever. So free forever. And any other information here? No, not really. Okay, not really. This is just a backup, and it's for paid cluster. So in case you want to back your information up, then here this is cluster 0. If you want to name it another name, you can go. I'm okay with it being cluster 0. So let's go to create a cluster. So on creating a cluster, one of the things you want to do is you want to put in your username and password. So here you could choose a certificate if you have any, but let's just go with username and password. So this will be just a test database. Okay, it's just a test database. So here I don't want to put any complex username or anything. So let me just put this as okay. Let me just put it as Aerosoft. Okay, just so my name is out here on this space, and let me just give it a simple password so I don't stress myself. All right, so yes, create user. So this user has been created, and being the first user is supposed to have like all the different functionalities and everything. Okay, so here you can always edit the password if you want. Okay, you can edit the password if you want and update it if you so choose. Then here, where would you like to connect from? So here it says use this to add network IPs to the IP access, and this can be modified at any time. And then here it says use this to configure network access between Atlas and your cloud or on-premise environment. And this is advanced, as you can see here, so we don't need this for now. Then here, we're talking about IPs, so I'll go with my local environment. We're talking about IPs. It says only an IP address you add to access list to be able to connect to your project clusters. So you can choose to add your current IP address. Okay, you can choose to add your current IP address. If you do that, it will do that. Okay, or you can you can choose to work with any IP address that is there. So usually there's a default. So for now, let me just put my IP address and just close this. Okay, so yeah, all right. So this says that all. Do I need to check password? No, I don't. Okay, so this takes some time. Okay, so this takes some time. So while that is loading, you will see that whether you're working with MongoDB Compass or you're working with this, you'll be having like some sort of similarity in the way okay, so this process is finished, okay, it's done. And here we currently don't have any collection, okay. So this is if we want to connect with the MongoDB shell, this is if we want to connect with the application, and this is if we want to connect with MongoDB Compass. So this is if we want to connect this, what do you call it? If we want to connect this cloud platform to the MongoDB shell, that is for this. So what we're just looking at today is for connecting with the application and connecting with MongoDB Compass. Those are the two parts that will be particularly important to us. So here, going forward, we have a database access where the users you create are available here, and you can decide to add more users. So if you want to add more users, for example, let me just call this admin, and let me just call this the password. Or let me just give it, let me just call it password too. So admin and password. And yeah, let me just work with that. So that way I don't have to stress myself. Then here you can choose the rows you want. So you have built-in rows. Here, this person can only read in any database. So you can do read, but can't do definite things like delete and such. So if you want to maybe make your endpoint, your API available to people just to consume, but they cannot like send in information to it. They can only get information from the database. You can give them such an access. Then this is an Atlas admin, like the first one which we had. So we'll just go with this. Then what else? You can restrict access to specific data lakes, which is not necessary. You can also make the user temporary, but let's just go with this. So let's just add user. Is there something I'm missing here? Is there something I'm using? The password is too weak. Okay, the password is too weak. All right. Okay, the password is too weak. I just try to use a very weak password. Let's just use a stronger password. Okay. Okay. So all right. So yeah, like so. So let me just use a stronger password, same access. All right, so all right, that works. That works. All right, so that works. Yeah. So just give me a second. Just give me a second. I would want to come in. Just give me a second. I just want to do this now, just so I can sure I remember the password. All right. Okay. Great. Okay. Great. So here we have this. Then here we have network access, and from this network access, you can, for example, add an IP address. So we added an IP address before, and here you can choose in this place if you want to add your current IP address or if you want to allow access from anywhere. So allowing access from anywhere, this is the entry you have. Okay, so this is the entry you have, and if you confirm this, you can decide to make it temporary or you can decide to leave it as this. So if you do that, if you make this, the difference between these two in terms of IP addresses, the difference between the two of them is that when you have your IP address specific to your location, when you move to another location, your IP address changes. So it means only people from that location will be able to access it. Only people within that IP address location will be able to access that. So that's one thing you need to consider. If you're working with another device, another setup, another IP address, it's not going to work. But this now allows IP addresses, as we've seen here. It says, okay, this is already done to allow all of them. Allowing one specific one doesn't really have much of a deal. Then here we don't need this for now. So let's go straight into working with the databases. So we're going to look at two aspects, like I mentioned today. So we're going to look at two aspects. One of them is connecting to application, connected to application. So here, if you click this option here, okay, if you click this option here, this is going to show you how you can do the setup. Okay, this is going to show you how you can do the setup. So here we have const declaring it require MongoDB. Then you have the URI, and then URI includes the username, the password, and create your first database. You can go about that. Then here, this is the client. This is necessary for you to be able to client.connect. Then the collection you want to reach out to. Here you put in the database you want to work with and the collection you want to reach out to. Okay, so here will be the database that you want to work with, and here will be the collection that you want to reach out to. So this is if you're working with that. Okay, this is if you're working with that. But if you're not working with that, if you're working with Mongoose as a package, for instance, all you just need is this. So I'm going to be showing you at this point the difference between working with MongoDB as raw and working with Mongoose. Okay, so the difference between working with both of them. So let's start off by looking at how to perform CRUD operations in. Let's start by looking at how to perform CRUD operations in MongoDB, and from there we look at the slight variation. This is. I need to make this slightly far away from the zoom button because it's preventing me from accessing things at the top. All right. Okay. Great. Okay. Great. Okay. Oh, let me just put this down a bit. All right. Great. Okay. So here we have MongoDB CRUD operations. So looking at MongoDB, after you've done the connection, you have the CRUD operations that are available in MongoDB. And if you go to this place, it's going to show you. So one of the things I've said over a very large amount of time is don't beat yourself up about being able to code without looking at the documentation. As a matter of fact, documentation is the beginning for you working with code, because you're not the one that wrote the programming language. You're not the one that developed the interfaces. You're not the one that developed the packages. So you want to check the documentation for how it is done. It is then your job to understand the syntax, the language. What does this mean? How do I get this information I want to get out of this? How can I modify this? That is what makes you a developer, but not about being able to code everything from the scratch or without documentation. So I wouldn't see any real serious developer, bragging about being able to write things from the scratch without looking at documentation to a new, something that is new to him, okay, her. However, after like some period of coding, there are certain things that you can, maybe like you have memorized the process by repeated use of it. So at that point, if you want to code from your memory, that's fine, that's okay. So here, this is documentation, and here it shows you how to perform the CRUD operations. So here we have create operations, and in MongoDB, it uses the database, calls the database, the collection, and it does insert one. Here it is to insert many. So in case you have many, so insert one now, this is to insert one object, and then insert many, okay? Insert many now. Excuse me, please. Now, it also has the way it returns like information. So it says inserted ID, and it returns this information back. So these are some of the things, but believe you me, I don't work with. It was only when I started working with .NET that I started using, MongoDB directly. But what we use more of Mongoose. Mongoose gives you a better, easier package and workflow. So we're going to be using Mongoose for this. So this is just for your own consumption, in case you want to work with, in case you want to give it a shot at how you can use MongoDB directly. This is documentation for you. So what is Mongoose, and how do we use Mongoose? So let's go to Mongoose.js. So go to Mongoose, Mongoose or js.com. So go to mongoose.js.com. All right. So what is Mongoose? So let's start first of all what we've been told here. It says, let's face it, writing MongoDB validations, casting, and business logic boilerplates is a drag. That's why we wrote Mongoose. Okay. So the challenge with working with MongoDB is a drag, it's stress, the validations, the things you need to do before you can, confirm certain things is a drag. So Mongoose works like an interface to help you, to easily get what you want. So Mongoose basically provides a straightforward schema-based. And this schema right now, okay, this schema-based is basically what you mean when you're talking about relationships. Okay, so the schema will help you set up the structure, and it will help you set up the relationship, and you have schema-based. So for the entirety of what we'll be doing going forward, we'll be working with Mongoose now. So it works with the schema-based solution model to application, and it includes built-in type casting, validations, query binding or query building, and business logic hooks and more, which you can get out of the box. So let's go over a quick start guide. Okay, so let's go over a quick start guide to working with Mongoose. So the first thing you want to do is you want to install Mongoose. So you can install Mongoose here, and then here you want to you want to go through the setup. Okay, so you want to go through the setup, and this is when you have like your function. Okay, so when you have your function, so yeah, we can both connect to the local database or to your, how do you put it? You can connect to your local database, or you can connect to your online database. So what we're going to do for a start is we are going to try to connect to our online database, and afterwards we'll connect to our local database. So let's go to our code space. Let's go to our code space. Where is our code space? So let's go to our code space. All right. So like this. What week we're in week 4. I need to put this away. What are this? What are this? What are this? What are this? Okay, I think I was trying something else. Okay, so let me trash this. All right, so okay, yeah, I have solutions for you for the different algorithms. Just in case you need them, I'll send them later. So let's work with week 4, and let me move into week 4. So let me move into week 4. Okay, so I should call this. Yeah, let me just leave it at that. Oh, I wasn't into it. Okay, so I'll leave it at week 4. So the first thing we want to do, like I said, the first thing you want to do now that you are working with packages is you want to create a package.json file. Okay, so here we're in week 4, and we need to initialize the package.json file. So I'll go with npm init, and I don't want to go through the stress of saying yes or no, so I'll just say -y. I'll use the flag -y to escape, to just accept all the defaults. So here we have a package.json file. And looking at it, it's called week 1. It points to index.js as the main file. And here I just want to create the index.js right away. So I'm going to say index.js. Okay, so I'm going to say index.js. And okay, so index.js here. And packages are going to need, okay? So instead of installing MongoDB now, since we want to use Mongoose, we'll just go with npm install Mongoose. So we just install Mongoose, and we don't need to do the --save. Okay, the way things are now, we're going to go doing --save. So why that is coming up. Okay, so why that is coming up. Okay, so that's done. All right, so here we want to work with our application. I remember we are using Express. Okay, we're using Express. We're not going to be using pure HTML package. So we'll just use Express. Okay, so we'll just install Express.js here. All right, like so. So while that is installing, we want to begin to start setting up the basic layout that we need. Okay, so we want to begin to start setting up the basic layout that we need. So let's start by doing const. Okay, so we can do const express equals to require express, and okay, I think it was Manny that asked in the last in one of our first classes if it was okay to use import statements for working with this, and yes, okay, using import statement works with this. However, there's like there's a catch. Okay, there's a catch to working with import statements, and okay, so if you want to work with import statements, then you have to update your package JSON to show that the type you are working with is a module. Okay, so then also at the same time, you want to see that it's functional all parts. Okay, so here we have an instance of Express, and we want to say the instance of the app, const app is equals to, so we want the app to be an instance of Express, and yes, like so. And then we want to connect to, we want to set up the connection. Okay, so we want to set up the connection now of Mongoose. So at this point, we can bring in Mongoose here. Okay, so like so, const Mongoose is equal to require Mongoose, and I think at this point I should just go over there so it doesn't look like I have to bring everything from my head. We have a documentation already there that shows us what we need. So here it says we should require Mongoose, and then after requiring Mongoose, you want to wait the connection. Okay, so you want to await Mongoose to connect. So this is an example. Okay, so this is an example. So here you want to await Mongoose. Let me just like this. Okay, so you want to await Mongoose to connect, and this is an async await function. Okay, this is an async await function, and it's basically just wait until it connects. Okay, for this to wait to connect, and then you might want to do something. Okay, so you might want to do something on an endpoint. Okay, so let's say for example, you want to maybe what do we start with? Let's start with a create request. Okay, so let's start with a create request, a call operation. So let's start with creating something. All right. Now we can do that by using the app now, and we can do that with a post request, because there is a post request, and then here we could then take in the request object that we want and the response object and what we want it to do. Okay, so what we want it to do, and let's just leave that like that for now, and then let's choose the port we want it to listen on. Okay, so here we could just we could define the port if you want at the beginning. Okay, so let me just push this up. I actually like all my packages at the top. Then things that I imported or used, I like them a little bit different. Now, this main.cat is because I'm using this here. Okay, just because I'm using this here. So we don't really need to have this setup here. This setup looks funny. It's just a name that we called it. Okay. Now, so here, our app.listen takes in two functions. Okay, our app.listen takes in two functions. Now, the first function it takes in is a callback. Okay, so it takes in the port rather, and then it's going to take in a callback function. So here we have like a port. So let me just define a port. Now, one way I like to define a port is by saying it equals to port. Okay, and then here we have like process.env. Okay, now this is if you have a .env file, which I'm going to explain later when we get to pushing. Okay, so you want to do this, or you wanted to track a particular port. So I like using port 4000, just something different from 3000, just in case you have a front-end application running your system. You also want to use something that's slightly different. So here we're going to put in the port, and we'll just use this AS6 syntax to have our callback. Okay, so here we have a callback function, and what we want it to do is we want it to console.log, or let's say listening as a string, listening on, let me just use a string literal. Okay, so listening on ports and port. Okay, like so. Okay, so because this is a constant, that's why I'm using capital letters for that. So listen on port, and yeah, so like so. All right, now here, now that we have like somewhat of a setup, maybe we can start with a get request. Okay, so let me just comment this out. Maybe we can start with a get request. So let us first of all check what we have available on our database. Okay, so let's see what we have available on our database. So here, browsing through collections, I just want to see MongoDB when you install, Atlas when you set it up, comes with some basic default. Okay, it comes with like some default sample data set with which you can use in testing. Okay, so let me see, explore data, add my own data. Let me just load sample data sets. How long is this going to be? I can't stop this process. That thing looked like it was so large. I don't know if I was seeing the 350 MB or if I was seeing stuff. By default, normally it comes with that, but if you're familiar with working with videos, YouTube videos and all that, you will realize that a lot of things change over time in some of these interfaces. So this is one of those periods where you see some things changing. Okay, so since I can't continue waiting for that, let's see any progress. Oh good. Can't keep waiting for that. Okay, let's just connect to it. Let's just connect to database first. Okay, so here I want to pick out the connection string. Okay, so I want to pick out the connection string here. So that's what I want to use to connect to this application to do the process. So here I have the connection string here. So I'm just going to copy this out and go back to the package. So here in this place, this is where I'm going to replace the connection string. Okay, so here we have replaced that with the connection string. That was for local, but this is going to be for your online platform. So one of the challenges people face mostly with using the connection MongoDB is that when they want to put in the username that they have created, they usually think that you need to put in the username like this, and that's the beginning of errors. It's not going to run. So you need to remove this tags, okay? And then here also like so. So what password did I put? I think I put the simple password as this. Okay, so this now is a simple password. This should be a first. This should be a first setup. Okay, so now when it comes to working, okay, when it comes to working with the setup here, we've done the first setup here on Mongoose. The next setup we want to look at here is working with a schema. So this, all we've done so far is just the connection, and we don't yet have an information we want to put in, okay? This is just for us to set up the connection. This is not going to give us access to everything. So the next thing we want to do is we want to define a schema, okay? The next thing we want to do is we want to define a schema. And what your schema is your schema is more of the model, okay? The model of what you want to work with. So you define a schema and then you set it up into a model. So that then gives it more of like a fixed setup or how it should appear. So here, let's just copy this for purpose of this class. So we don't need to create new identities or anything. So here we have, we'll put this Postgres off for now. Okay, so here we have this here as the schema, all right? And the next we have is we have the entity we want to create, okay? So we are going to call this here now. This here, what we are doing here basically is that we are creating a class, okay? A class, and this is what we are using. So this model basically is like a class. This schema here, what it does is it is describing the class here, and then we are now creating this class. We are creating this class and giving this class a name for the class. So the class name will be called kitten, and it has this schema, or it has this type of relationship, okay? So it has this type of relational structure. I think structure will be the best way to define it. So this is the structure we are creating here. And then the structure here, we are saving it into this here as a class. And when we do this, we are now going to call it this name in the database. So this will become the name of the collection. So the collection in database will be named after this, okay? Now, if we want to create a new entity, for example, we will be going through the way we have worked with a class using our new, okay? So here, coming into this, okay? So here now, for instance here, you have, that's what we've learned in our class here, you have that this here now is your class, and now you are creating an instance of it, which will be more or less an object. Now, that new entity is what you are creating by working with this. Okay, so at every point in time, this becomes the new object created from this class. But remind you, it's not just like a class, it is more of like a class that we refer now as a model. Okay, so you are creating now an object out of this model. So that's what we're doing here. So now that we have created an object, okay, created an object out of this model, and I'm going to collect the name silence. Let me call the name. What name can I call this? Let me just call it Bluefield. Okay, let me just call it Bluefield. Okay, so I'm writing the name like, okay, so let me just call it Bluefield, and here I'll just call it Bluefield also. Okay, so blue field. Okay, Bluefield. Okay. All right. Okay, so here, this is just the same way we pass parameters. Okay, so here we're passing parameters here. And at this point of creation, what we are doing here at this point of creation is that we are entering in the information. We can either enter in the information like this or at point of creation, or as we see soon, we can enter the information later by binding it to. So the same way we did, our operation, we can do Bluefield.name and such and everything. Or let me just call it Garfield. I think Garfield is more popular. Let me call this Garfield. Garfield. Okay, so I think Garfield is more popular. Let me call it Garfield. So you can say Garfield.name, Garfield.this, and add. But whatever it is you want to do, as we will see soon, you can only work within what is defined in the schema. So let's go on. All right. So here now, let us look at this. Okay, I want to skip this part for now. So we'll come to that. I want to skip this part for now. Now, here now, this is creating another animal and everything. So what we have here is a save method. What we have here is a save method, and a save method is a way of adding the new information you want to add. Okay, so once you have gotten the information you want, you can do a save method. So instead of us going through the way we had db.collection.this.insert one, as you would have in MongoDB, you can just go to say await. Okay, so you can just go to say await Garfield.save. Okay, or Garfield.save, and like so. And once you do this, this will update that information in the database. Now, I want you to know, okay, I want you to know at this point, we aren't currently listening at any port. We aren't currently listening at any port here, okay? So we're not currently listening at any port. So what I'll just do is I'll just create, let me just do a quick method that will like our endpoint to which this information is going to go. So we just create an endpoint to which this information is going to go, and then once we do that, okay. So once we do that, the endpoint at which this information is going to go, then we are going to add this. Okay, so all right, let's go. So here, okay, so let me just create this endpoint here at the post. Okay, and the post request response should be here. Okay, like so, and let me just put this in. We don't need this to be here in together at the same time. Okay, we don't quite need this to be here at the same time, and okay, so this is a post method, and okay. This. All right. So let me check. Let me check if anything is missing. My run scripts. So start. Index.js. Okay, and run. Okay. All right. So I think that settles start script and everything. So I'll just go with npm run def just so that I can check in case there's an error somewhere. What is missing? What is missing? Oh, sorry, it's not it's dev. Okay, so let me just do this again. Dev. Okay. So yeah, something is wrong. Okay, something is wrong. Wait. I did this, but I didn't do this in our sync. Okay, so I didn't do this in our sync. All right. So what else? What else is wrong? What else is wrong?
There's a spelling.
Wait, just give me a second. You said what?
There's a spelling error in the package.json file for the dev.
Sorry, I didn't get you. The spelling error in where?
Index.
In the dev?
Yes, in the package. Yeah.
Oh.
In.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Well, I'm surprised that worked all the same, even if there's a spelling error. Let me just go right again. I'm not sure it's a spelling error. Okay, I'm coming. Just give me a second. Okay. Just give me a second. Just give me a second, please. Okay. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. I'm not used to like putting all of this together. Okay. Just give me a second, okay? Yeah.
A closing bracket there.
Just give me a second. Okay. All right, that was error. Then for now, I'm not returning a response. I just want to just get to that endpoint, and once that is working, then let's see our database if our database is finally available. Browse collection. So they put in some seed data. All right, so they put in sample data, and oh, come on, I just messed up. I didn't think it was going to be like this much. I just messed up what we have. I didn't think it was going to be this much. I'll just delete some of the things we don't need from here later on. I was just thinking to just have the initial test. But here, let's look here. We see we have only sample, and we don't yet have any of our new collections or anything. Okay, so let's just, this is running, it's available, and it's a post request. I'm not currently returning any response for now. Okay, so I just want to test this up on Postman. And once that is working, once that is working, we'll go. Okay. Okay, so let's give it a second on Postman. Postman is coming up. So hard to access this if they are scrolling into. Okay. Fresh. I can close this. Okay, so localhost. If I don't actually to like, it's just going to keep loading. It's just going to keep loading. So later on, I'll return a response. We're just going to keep loading. What's going on?
There is no route for the.
You didn't?
Oh, can we follow me, please. Follow me, please. Okay, so that will keep running. Okay, so yeah, let me refresh this. Okay, so here we see and it sent in that information here. And if we click on the keychain here, from science to graphics, so it's going to show you this information here that's been added here to the database. Okay, so basically this works. Okay, so connecting here works. Okay, so this initial setup works. But particularly, I'm not returning a response, which shouldn't be the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this, cancel this, and there's a particular way I like to set up. How do I remove this? Okay, so this guy is disturbing. Okay, so there's a particular way I like to set up. The particular way I like to set up or how I work. So let me bring this down. This Zoom stuff is like preventing me from access. Yeah. Let me just restart the buttons. Preventing me from accessing all that stuff. I think it's okay there. All right. Okay. So I think it's okay now. Okay. So going by what we said, one of the things you want to do is after you've done the response, you want to then send maybe like a response to the user. So you want to, for example, just put in the response saying maybe like success or something. If the response works, okay. So you want to put in to the user at the end of that. So you could just do maybe like a rest.json here. So you should just do rest.json, and if catch the time you have an error or stuff like that, you can then do that. So here in rest.json, maybe you have an object. So maybe, for instance, you want to return the user like that field, maybe the name, or you want to return just some field and everything. You can just do response.json and send in the information that you want to send across. So that could then be a response. And then if, for instance, you are working with save, for example, this process oftentimes has some errors. Okay, you could have an error in saving, and you don't want to just leave it open to, I expect that this thing must work. You want to then wrap it in a try-catch block. Okay, so you want to then wrap it in a try-catch block to see that just in case. So you can do maybe like a try, so you can do a try-catch, and then here you can then wrap what you want. What was here before? Okay, that was there. So you can then try to catch the error. So if there is no error, for instance, now, if there's no error, you want to return this information to the person. And then if there's some error, you might want to consider log the error rather than sending it to the person. So you might want to consider log the error to see what error is. So that's another like key approach. Then here also you might want to send status. So by default, the status that you get the status that you get by default will be 200 if it doesn't turn up in an error. If you don't have an error, the default you have. But sometimes you might want to explicitly spell it out. So you can do rest.status. Okay, you can do rest.status. Then you can put 200 if you want. Then .json. And this will tag along the status. If you want to send maybe like that doesn't necessarily mean that it works. You want to send a person an error response, for instance, or maybe not allowed, or maybe you are denying the person access to something, then you can then have that response will be maybe the 400. Or if you are creating, like now we are creating a new user, so or rather a new kitten, that the best would be, okay, so we're creating a new kitten. So the best would be us having what you call it, us having this 201, okay, as a response rather than this. So the purpose of async await is you want to wait for this operation to happen. So that's why we have the async await. We want to wait for this operation here to happen, and after it happens, it is based on it happening that you have your response. If it is not successful and it returns in an error, you want to catch the error so that the error does not stop the program from running. Okay, so it does not stop the application from running. That's because of the catch. So if we didn't have a catch and an error was to occur, it can affect the application, prevent it from running. But if you then catch it, then you are more preventing it from running, and you are now softly returning the error response. So let's try this again. So let's try this again and see the difference we have here. So what do we have here? We have an object name, silence, and everything. And okay, so let's try this again and see. So the port still running. It's running on ports. Okay, so let's try this again. Same. Okay. All right. So as you can see here now, I'm receiving here like the response now this time around as opposed to before. And you can see the status here. So the status here is showing 201 created. So this is meaning that the request has been fulfilled, and yes, something has been created. So we then have this here. Okay, so this is a query request, and we can do that. Okay, so the next we want to try out now would be this here is a post request. We want to try out creating a get request. But before we go into doing that, let me just do this. Okay, so before we go into doing that, you can always collapse what you've worked on and is working by that. So let me just call this a create request. So this is a create, and here, just call this a get or a read request. Okay, so let's call this read. Okay, so read, this will just be the same after get. Yeah, I missed out the endpoint before. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, then request response, and where you want it to go to. Okay, so here also, this particular thing here, okay, it doesn't have to be here. So I want to bring it out so that it is not, I want to bring it out so that it is not, it's available to the whole. So it's available to the whole here. Okay, so I want to bring it out so it's available to the whole. Now, one of the things that we work with when doing a get request is you want to pick the model just as you have done here. Okay, you want to pick the model just as you've done, and then you are going to look for something in the model. So you're looking for something in the model, and in a case where you are just looking for maybe, like, for instance, just the whole information, you're not searching for something, all you just do is you just do an await, and then you have .find, which is the method that does that, and you have just an empty callback. Okay, so you have this empty callback. Okay, so that's what you do. So let's say, for example, now we want to get all the kittens that are available. So we can say const kitten. Okay, talking about kittens, we want to get const kitten is equal to, and it's an await. So most of the functions, most of your calls, or in fact, virtually all your calls to the database, you want to do an await function. And the purpose of you having to do an await function is that your database has a time, okay? It has a time that it takes for you to get results. It takes some time for you to get results. And you don't want to you don't want to what's the word now? You don't want the process to continue, because this one here, like we talked about the asynchronous nature of JavaScript. If we don't wait for this, it is going to just go straight to the next, because this is an expensive operation to leave this and go straight to the next one. And by the time you want to do the next one, which may be maybe to console.log, or you want to return the response, or maybe you want to return the response. Okay, let's say you want to return the response kitten now, for example. Now, this here, if you don't do this async await, it's going to jump straight to trying to return this response. And at this point, the response has not gotten anything. The kitten has not gotten anything. So it's going to be undefined. So the purpose of await is wait until I get this response. And when I get this response, then let the response be stored into this. Okay, so here we could also do a try catch just in case, or I believe this should go. So let's just do this. This is a get request. We're doing this to the kittens. What do we have in the database? So in the database for kittens, we need to refresh. Where I use the refresh button. Okay, so for kitten, so as you can see now, working with this, we have collections that fit silent. And as you can see with this here, I have to click refresh. So here, silent, Garfield, and something like here. So let's go to Postman and do this, and hopefully this should work. So let's do this. Get request, and okay. So here we have the two informations coming from the database. So we have kitten. So we have the two of them, and they are basically coming as an array. Okay, an array with two objects. So we have object 1 and object 2. So it's basically coming back or returning as an array. So depending on what you want to do, you might want to destructure what you want out of an array. So this is a method for you to get all. Okay, so if you want to read all, this is a method for you to read all. So later on, you can come please. So later on, you can look into what I'll be showing you towards the end of this class. I'll show you how I like to structure my code. So we'll move into structuring. So this here, we want to read one. Okay, so to read one, or let's just say get specific items. Let's just say read, and just say get specific item. So get specific item. So here, I will just call this create. Okay, create item. That's an item. That's a create item. Then this one, I'll say get all items. Get all items. Then here, this will be get specific item. So basically, the process basically just saying get requests, and here you would then have to introduce something. Okay, so when working with trying to get like a specific item, what you want to do here is you want to do like a find one. Okay, you want to do a find one, and you want to look for that item using the object ID. Okay, so you want to look for it using the object ID. So generally, you come on, please. Okay, so here, for instance, here you can decide to find in several ways. So one is you can do find by ID. Let's see if Mongoose has that put up there. Okay, you can do find by ID. Okay, I think we're done with this. You can do find, and in here you can put in the name that you want. Okay, you can put in like a field that you want, the key, and the particular pair that you want. So let me try to first of all do this with the key with the pair of what we want here, putting in information. And this here is their own way. Okay, this here is their own way of showing that you can look for something. So let's try this out first. If it doesn't work, we'll just check what went wrong or what's not working. So what I want to do here is I want to just include here where name, as it put there. Okay, where name. Okay, so name without any so here we just have name here, where name is equal to, we have Garfield. Okay, so where name is equal to Garfield. So let's say, for example, and then this, I will just call this one, let's call this one Kitty. So let's call this one Kitty. So it has like a different, it's like a different endpoint, so it doesn't conflict with this one. So let's see if this works, and if it doesn't, because I'm just doing this from top of my head. So if this doesn't, we'll see. So Kitty / Kitty, and let's see if it finds Garfield. So yes, it does. It finds Garfield. So what this was doing here is it was checking for where you have Garfield. But the challenge with this method here is that, let me show you a challenge with this method. Let's create a new, let's go to the post. Okay, let's go to the post here, and let's do localhost 4000. Okay, and here we just want to create something. So we have Garfield here. I want to do it one more time. So we have multiple Garfields. Ideally, when we go further, we see how like we can allow the user to input the names, not we having to hard code it, at the back. Okay, so let's go now to this method, and you see what this method does. So basically, what this is doing here, using that find method, is going to return everything that has this here, that has Garfield. Okay, everywhere you have name and Garfield together, it's going to return that. So there's another method that is a little more specific. Okay, so I'm going to just add this method because it's good we just like familiarize ourselves with this from scratch. So I'll just call this one, let's just call this one Kitty. Okay, so one Kitty. So this method now is find one. Okay, so this is find one. So this is find one. And with this here, it's going to look for the first. Okay, so this is one Kitty, right? Okay, where do I go? Postman. So let me just copy this here and start this here. Get request and just put one Kitty. Okay, so doing this now, you see here it returns one and it's returning only the first. So while this other method here will return all in such database that has all with the name Garfield, this one here is going to return one. Okay, so that's one part that we want to look we want to get ourselves familiar with. Then one last aspect I would like, okay, one last aspect I would like to show you. One last aspect I would like to show you. But before then, let me take questions. Does anybody have any questions thus far? Does anybody have any questions thus far? Any question, anyone? Any question thus far? If you have a question, please put up your hands. Okay, so let me just take a pause. If you have a question, please put up your hands. Anybody? Nobody? Okay, none from here. Any other person? Any other person here? I have a question. Put up your hands. Any other person? You have a question? Put up your hands, please. Okay, so if there are no questions, just give me a thumbs up so I know that we're good to go on our side. Excuse me. I need to get some water. Just give me a second. Let me get some water. Show the scotch. All right, I'm back. All right, thanks. Um, so going forward, one more way I want to show you is how to include um, what we call like parameters. Okay, how to include parameters into it. Because what we've been doing thus far is we've been more static, we've been more static. We are putting in the name here, name Gaffy, name Gaffy, name Gaffy. We've been more static in our approach. So what we want to look for is before we move into that, we want to look at how to find, okay, how to find something using like a parameter, okay? So what if the person wants to dynamically include the name Garfield instead of, let's say the person wants to put the name Garfield from the body, or maybe you want the person to add like Garfield, there in the string. So let's look at one of those ways to do this. So one of those ways to do this is you might want to do something like putting in like let's say a parameter. Okay, so you might want to do something like putting in a parameter. So let's say for instance a name. So with this here, what this is going to do is that it's going to try to make it so that you can then access this parameter later on within your code. Okay, so you want to be able to access the parameter later on within your code, so you can then call on the parameter. Okay, so you can then call on the parameter. So that's like one of the purposes of doing that. Okay, so if you want to get the response now, maybe like as a parameter, or you want the person to add this part like such and everything. But I think we should let us look at the update and delete. I'll comment this out. Look at update and delete first, because we're running short on time. So just in case the information is sketchy. So let's look at update and delete. So we've seen what have we seen? We've seen create, we've seen read get all, we've seen read to get specific item, okay, and we've seen read to get one specific item. So with this here, we'll come back to this maybe later. I'll start with this in our next class. Then with this, we want to look at updates. Okay, so updates. I think we might even need it here in this update method. So we want to look at updates. So we want to update an item. Okay, so update an item. All right. So to update an item, generally you use the put request. Okay, so it's a put request, and then here you could include this, and this is that point where we are going to surely need the parameter. But if we want to supply the parameter here, we might not need it. So for now, we'll just hard code the parameter. We'll just hard code it here. Then later on, we'll look at including it. Okay, so later on we'll look at including it. So let's do this. Okay, so here, as usual, you want to find something. Okay, as usual, you want to find something. So here, you can decide that, okay, I want to find something that I created before in the database, and I can use many ways to track it. One is I could use, okay, we haven't connected to Compass instead of using Cloud MongoDB. Okay, let's just look at this first. So let me refresh this. After this update, we'll look at. So after this update, we'll look at connected to Compass, and then from there, yeah. So let me see. Okay, so here we can use multiple ways. We can use find by ID, or we can use this. So I want to use silence, okay, because I don't like the name silence for the name of the cat. So I want to use silence. So I'm going to look for this. to update this, which is basically the same. Your find method is basically still the same method you're going to use. Once you have found any object, you can alter it. Okay, so I want to use find silence. Okay, and when I have found silence, okay, when I found the kitty named silence, then I could decide to do something, okay, to it. So let's look at the update method from this so that it's clearing. Where do we have updates? Okay, so let me just type this here. If it's not here, the amount of information that is here is like quite too much. Okay, the amount of information that is here is quite too much, so it doesn't quite make sense to have to make up a note, or like of all these different functions. It doesn't quite make up a note. Make sense to make up a note of all these different options. So it just makes sense to go straight to documentation. Okay, so to update something, you can decide to use like the await.model.update and the information that you want to update in it. Okay, so that's one way you can go about updating. Okay, now you can decide to like put a query here showing like what you want to use to look for it. Okay, so that's like a way of looking at how you could do that. So where is this? All right. Okay, so another thing you can do, which I usually prefer, is you can use the save method instead of using the update. So what I usually prefer doing is I will pick, for example, the object or what it is I'm looking for, and then if it exists, okay, if it exists, I would say fine, update it. But if it doesn't exist, all right, if it doesn't exist, then I want to return maybe like a response, okay, a response. And this time, since it's 404, I won't just return a response. I will just say response of status 404 not found, 400 or 404, I can't remember right now. Okay, let's use 404 not found, 404, and then the information I want to pass across. So I could decide to, sorry, I missed the bracket. All right. So I could decide to give it like, like a particular syntax, the way I want it to be. So I could just say maybe like maybe message, okay. And the message now, I could then decide to give it like a message like kitty not found, kitty not found. So that way, it will first check, and then if the kitty is not found, okay, it will then return this as a response. And one thing is, I usually also like this being in a try catch block. So let me just make a try catch block here, and let me take all of this up into it. Okay, so just take all of this up into it, and then catch, and then if there's an error, I just want to console the error so that I can figure out what's wrong. Okay, so this here, the kitty not being found is not an error. Okay, the kitty not being found is not an error. It's basically a feedback letting the user know that the kitty was not found. So while 404 may be an error response, it doesn't mean that this process is an error. All right. So here we are like trying to escape it from being an error, because if the next thing we try to do is we try to update this kitty without first of all checking if the kitten is not found, and this here it needs to return. We can't just say response. We need to return, okay, because we want this to escape out of the code. We want it to escape out of the try and stop everything. So that's the reason why we're also using return here, okay, as opposed to, like, if there's an error, stop at this point. Well, if we didn't put this return here, it will know there's an error. If you try to return this response, and at the same time, it will then try to do something else, but you know, you can only send one response at a time. So that's another bad practice for you, not to return one response at a time. So here, we wanted to return if there's an error. And then if there's no error, we want it to then do something. Okay, we want it to then do something. So we're not going to be taking, what do you call it now? We're not going to be taking response from the body yet, okay, or from parameters yet. But what we just do is here we want to take the name and change the name to what name to be a good name for cats. I don't even know right now. Okay. Let me just call it Chat. Let me call it Chase. Okay, let's call this Chase. Okay, and then after this is done, okay, after this is done, I can decide to say await, dot chase, dot save, await dot save, await kitten, await kitten, dot save, and after that is done, I could then return a response. So I could then return a response to the user now saying, okay, I want the user to receive the information. So I can do this as kitten, or I could do this as saying a message. So let me do this with a message now. So let me say a message, for example, a message. So let me say kitten was updated, or yeah, let's just kitten name. Depends on what you have. Okay, so I'm just a kitten name was updated. Let's say this is just a kitten name was updated. You can your message could be up to you, depends on how you want to set it up. So if this works, if it saves the name and everything, then yes, I wanted to show this message, and I wanted to show the new kitten name. So it's going to return a kitten as an object. So this should be to what route? Okay, so put request so you can stay on its own. So let's put this as put request staying on its own. And yeah, so let me just copy this. So this is put request. Okay, put request, and all right. So all right. So as you can see here, update, not updated. Okay, so as you can see here now, it says kitten name was updated, just to the head in your mind. And then when I return the object, you see here the ID still stays the same, E49. Let's go back to database. Okay, so E49, E49. Okay, so you see E49. They have not refreshed, so here it's still showing silence, E49. But when I refresh, you will see it changes from E49 to chase, from silence to chase. Okay, so all right, so you see here E49, and it's changed from silence to chase. So let's stop for here. We'll delete request. Let's look at how to connect with Compass. Okay, let's look at how to connect with Compass, because I want to use Compass for most of your work, because it saves you like the stress of reloading, refreshing page. It saves you data. That's the purpose of it. So yes, connecting to Compass. How do we connect to Compass? We connect to Compass from here. Where is it? Okay, so you go to overview, your database, you go to overview, and why is this page looking so very unfamiliar? All right. Okay, so here you click connect. When you click connect, this time around, you know what we did for application, we used this, but this time around, what we did is we are going to use Compass now, connecting to Compass. So you have questions to ask. I don't have MongoDB Compass. I have, so I have. Then here, what version later? Just leave that as default. Then this is the URL or the string where you're going to put the compass. Okay, so you click on this, and then you go to compass. So opening up compass, compass shows me. This is changed. It's looking different from how I used it before I updated it today. So here you paste in the string, and this string is different from the other ones. Here you want to put in your username, so I'll just use the one I set up for the test, and password, or just use the password I set up for the test, and connect. Okay, so okay, so it's connected here, and all these wasted databases that I didn't intend to use, I didn't know it was so much information. If you want to delete a database here, you need to select it and just do this, do drop, and yes, you can delete. So user is not allowed to do this. Okay, the admin I choose does not have that privilege of deleting. It's not an Atlas manager, so I'll need to use someone that yes have the access. I can only do read and update based on access. So yes, this is the key things, and here you can see the information here. Okay, so you can see the information here, and all of this is here, and this is to refresh, and it's relatively fast. Look at the refresh rate, really fast. So let's just do one more. Let's just do one more. Let's do it with. Let's just do one more. Let's do it delete, and let me do this. So let's do it delete, and so let's do a delete, and then we'll call it a day for today. So do a delete request. Okay. And the process is still the same. Basically, today is just like beginning work. Okay, so we're just doing beginning work. We're not doing any like serious work. We're just doing beginning work. So the difference between your delete process is while you can actually do a delete in terms of find one and delete instantly, you don't want to do that for the start. You don't want to just go here to say find one, because you can actually update using find one and update. Like instead of me using save here, you can actually do find one and update. You can do save, whichever one works. Okay. There are many like ways to build the cat. Like here, I use saved. The reason why I use saved here is because it allows me the freedom to be able to change what I want to change here. But if I use find one and update here, I'll have to pass in what I want to update to and what I'm looking for. So I'll pass in the query, what I'm looking for, and then I will then pass in what I want to update it to here. That's the reason why I didn't use find one and update. So those methods are actually available. For this method here that I use with save allows me to sort of like manually map what I want to change in the pattern or where I want to change it, instead of having to put all of that here in the find one and update method. So that's one way, or that's one like plus or advantage of doing that. Okay, so that's one plus or advantage of doing that. Then here, if I was to do find one and delete right from here, it will work if this name does exist. Okay, but the challenge here is if it doesn't exist, it's not going to give a user a feedback. So most times I would want to do, first of all, a find to see if it exists. Then if it exists, if it doesn't exist, let them know it doesn't exist. So the front end is not waiting for a response that doesn't come. Okay. Then if it exists, then you want to then move straight to a find one and delete. So this would be a find one and delete. So it should just be await. Okay, that's too large. Okay, so just be await. Let me remove this here because I'm not returning any response here. I just want to return kitten was deleted. Kitten was deleted. Okay, then I'll wait kitten. Okay, dot or delete. Do I have that method accessible? Do I have a delete method directly accessible like so? Let me use the find one and delete. Okay, let me use the find one and delete, and let me see, find one and delete. Okay, so let me use the find one and delete. So the find one and delete should return a response to me. Okay, find one and delete. I think it should return a response to me, and if it works, okay, so if it works, then it should send me this. But if it doesn't work, then it should not send me this. So what method would I use? I think 200 is okay for delete. You can use 200 for delete. So what are we deleting? We're deleting silence. That name doesn't exist again. So let's delete chase. Okay, so that name doesn't exist again. So chase is what exists. Okay. So what routes? Okay, this should be a delete, not a put. That's one of the challenges with like copying and pasting your code to continue elsewhere. So you have to start looking at everything from top to bottom. Okay, so all right, so delete request. Here we go. So delete localhost 4000. Okay, a delete request and yes. Okay, so all right, so like so, and yeah, kitten was deleted. Okay, so it shows kitten was deleted, and checking from compass, you see it's still here, but look at how fast refresh would be. Come on, that's fast. Okay, but if I was to check here on if I was to check here, okay, fine. Browsing collections, we take time to refresh normally. So let me just I'll delete one more kitten. Okay, so I'm going to delete one more kitten. I'm going to delete this first one, B75, which I hope should be the first one that comes out. But anyway, we can see three here. So we're going to see the difference between them, and all names are Garfield. So now next class, we'll look at things like working with IDs, how to find by ID and such. Okay, so let's use Garfield. Let's use Garfield. Okay, Garfield. All right. So using Garfield, yeah. Okay, so kitten was deleted, and let's see how compass renders. So refreshing compass, you see that it's already up. That was roughly like 2 seconds or one. Okay, then here in this place, let's do a refresh here and see the difference. So refresh. All right, so you can see the difference. So that time that is taking is basically also not just time, it's taking data. So for you, working with Compass will save you a lot of data, and that will make life pretty much very easy and straightforward for you. So today we've looked at 4 processes. Okay, we've looked at 4 processes. We've looked at create, okay, to create an item. We looked at read with one style to get all items. We looked at read in another style to get a specific item. And this time around, we were using the name as material. And when we did it like this, using only find, we saw that it got all the names, all the or such items that had or met that criteria. So when you use find, like we see find here, find, okay, sorry, not this one, this one. When you use find here, find returns everything that belongs in that list, okay? But when you use this, it returns this now using this as a query parameter. Then when you use this one now, find one, it returns the first. So if you are using MongoDB directly, MongoDB has a find one async method. Okay, so it returns just one. Then, so we've seen that how we can find one. So you just want to pick the first one. And then from here, we have the updates. Okay, we have here the updates, and the update method we've seen here, and we use this as a query to find it. So after finding it, then we are updating it manually here, which I said is a little bit better as opposed to using the find one and update. The find one and update is good, it works fine. But how do I put it? This one gives you a lot more flexibility because you might not want to change certain things. Okay, so whichever one you want to do, both of them works. Then you can also do a delete method. So here we use the find one and delete method, and we use this as query parameter. So in our next time working with this, we're going to be using ID, like I wanted to do here. Okay, I wanted to do here. We're going to use ID, but I just felt that that's like too much cover for today, and because this now would have to include this in parameter strings, and let's just stick to the basic for today. So let me wipe this off. You can also decide to go through it if you want to. You can decide to also do some advanced search. So that will be that for today's class. Now, next class, I'm going to show you how to restructure into an MVC pattern. Everything we're doing here is in one page, and this is really bad. Okay, so now next class, I'm going to show you how to restructure for an MVC pattern. And another thing I like doing is I like to have like a contest with local or my local database and everything. So I think that's that for today. Any questions? Okay, it returns a response if it doesn't find documents. Okay, yes, it returns a response if it doesn't find a document to delete. Yes, thank you. Yes, it returns a response if it doesn't find a document to delete. And yeah, what was that? Okay, great. So any question? Any question? Now, next class, we'll be looking at MVC. Okay, we're looking at MVC, separating all of this, jargons into like, a cleaner code structure. So we'll be looking at the way an intermediate developer and intermediate to advanced. We look at two concepts: how an intermediate and a slightly advanced developer to structure their folder. So we start next class on folder structures. Then from folder structures, we'll choose one which will be good for us for a start, and afterwards we will then move into the business of the day. We've taken so much time, so I just have to round up now. So thanks for your time, everyone, and I'd like to call on Mr. Prosper to give us a closing remark for today's class.
Yeah, good guys. Once again, so this is basically Chord operations as we've seen, and then like our trainer have said, we're going to be looking into organizing all of this into a very a better pattern, right? Giving it an industry standard structure. Yeah. So fortunately better, everybody came early. Yeah, it's good we're keeping to instructions and all. So yeah, I believe everybody has been promoted to stage 10, right? So if you've done the stage 2 tax, the former stage 2 tax, you should be in this stage 10 channel by now. So and I also believe everybody has updated their stage status to the corresponding stage that they are. Yeah. So henceforth, we won't be dropping our tax in our intermediate channel, the private channel. We're dropping them in the stage channel. So you want to pay attention to information in that stage channel. All right, guys. Thanks again for your time. Thank you, Benjamin, for another wonderful and insightful session. Yeah, so that's it for me. Good night, everybody.
All right, now, so thanks, guys. We get to see each other in the next class. So keep your fingers crossed. Also be on the lookout for the assignments on Airtable. So I'll see you guys next week. You guys enjoy your weekend. And yeah, happy Easter to you all.